Silence isn't empty, it's full of answers. When you stop chasing the noise, life starts chasing you. The loudest transformations happen in your quietest moments. When you enter silence, something extraordinary begins to happen within the human system. The brain, which is constantly busy processing information, planning, worrying, analyzing, and rehearsing old memories, starts to slow down. At first, this feels uncomfortable because we are conditioned to equate stillness with unproductivity, silence with emptiness, and the absence of noise with boredom. Yet when you allow yourself to remain in that state long enough, the mind begins to shift. The brain waves that were operating in high beta, the state of stress and survival, start to descend into alpha and even theta, states that are linked with creativity, intuition, and healing. Silence, therefore, is not the absence of something, it is the presence of alignment. It is the opening of a door to coherence, where your inner world begins to sync in a way that your outer world can finally reflect. Imagine this. Most of us live with an inner dialogue that never stops. We are constantly thinking about what people said, what they might say, how they view us, and how we should respond. We carry arguments in our heads long after the conversation is over. We rehearse scenarios of the future that may never even happen. This endless chatter consumes so much of our energy that we rarely realize how drained we are. Silence interrupts this cycle. When you become still and silent, you stop feeding the inner commentary. It is as if the river of thought slows from a rapid current into a calm stream, and when the waters settle, you can finally see to the bottom. That clarity is the beginning of alignment. Silence gives the heart and the brain the chance to connect. In constant noise, the heart beats in one rhythm, the brain races in another, and the body follows neither in harmony. This incoherence is why people feel fragmented, stressed, or unfulfilled even when external life seems fine. But in silence, the heart and brain begin to entrain. Their rhythms become synchronized. Science shows that when this coherence occurs, the immune system strengthens, intuition sharpens, and the body enters a state of repair. Silence, therefore, is not passive. It is the most active form of recalibration you can experience. It is the tuning of an instrument that has been playing out of key for far too long. What is most profound is that silence allows you to tune into a dimension of yourself that words cannot describe. Thoughts are symbols, language is limited, but silence reaches deeper. It speaks in the form of knowing, in the form of inner guidance, in the form of intuition that does not shout, but whispers with authority. When you quiet the mental noise, you begin to sense impulses that guide you, not from fear, not from habit, but from alignment with something greater. These impulses are the seeds of synchronicity. They are the whispers that lead you to meet the right person, be in the right place, and take the right action at precisely the right time. Silence is also the space where you release resistance. In our ordinary days, we push against life. We push against what we don't want. We try to force outcomes. We attempt to manipulate circumstances into our favor. But silence softens this tension. When you become still, you realize you don't need to chase what is meant for you. You start to feel that everything that aligns with your true frequency is already moving toward you. This surrender is not weakness. It is a strength. It is the strength of trusting a deeper intelligence that organizes galaxies, grows forests, and beats your heart without you needing to instruct it. The paradox is that silence feels like doing nothing, yet it accomplishes everything. Think of soil. When it is still and undisturbed, it becomes fertile ground. Seeds beneath the surface germinate and grow without noise, without rush, without interference. Your consciousness works the same way. In silence, you are cultivating the soil of your being, Old energies settle, new possibilities root themselves, and transformation begins invisibly before it shows outwardly. What looks like stillness on the surface is profound motion beneath. Silence is also a mirror. In it you come face to face with yourself. Not the roles you play, not the masks you wear, not the identities society has placed on you, but the raw essence of who you are. For many, this is why silence feels intimidating, because the mind begins to surface all the thoughts and emotions it has suppressed. Yet this is part of the alignment process. As you sit with what arises, you learn not to react but to observe, not to resist but to integrate. Over time, you discover that you are not your thoughts but the awareness behind them, and once you touch that awareness, you realize it is vast, spacious, and unshakable. That realization alone brings coherence, for it reminds you that the chaos of the mind is not who you are. In the external world, silence communicates more than words ever could. When you become silent within, your energy speaks louder than your voice. People can feel when you are aligned, when your presence carries coherence. You no longer need to explain, argue, or convince, because alignment transmits itself. Opportunities flow not because you chase them, but because your energy calls them forth. Relationships harmonize not because you manipulate them, but because your silent presence shifts the field. Silence, therefore, is not withdrawal from life. It is the most powerful way of engaging with life from the inside out. Every single thought you entertain, every feeling you amplify, and every image you rehearse in the mind becomes a signal that directs energy. This is not just a poetic idea. It is rooted in the fundamental truth that your nervous system, your heart, and your brain are electromagnetic instruments broadcasting information into the field around you. Wherever your attention rests, that is where your life force flows. The problem is that most people live their entire lives unconsciously investing their attention in distractions, complaints, fears, and stories of limitation. And then they wonder why their external world continues to present evidence of struggle and chaos. When you shift attention inward, you begin reclaiming the energy that has been scattered across external circumstances. Every time you worry about what someone thinks of you, part of your energy is invested in their perception. Every time you dwell on a problem, you are wiring your brain to anticipate that same problem tomorrow. Every time you replay a painful memory, you are investing energy into keeping that memory alive as if it is happening now. The body does not know the difference between what is happening externally and what you vividly imagine internally. It responds chemically, hormonally, and emotionally as if both are real. So, if most of your attention is focused on what is wrong, you are literally training your biology to live in that reality. But when you choose to redirect your attention inward, toward the space of silence, toward the heart, toward the vision of who you wish to become, you are withdrawing energy from the old and reinvesting it into the new. This act is more powerful than any external action because it is the root of transformation. Attention is like sunlight. Scatter it across a field and it warms the soil. Concentrate it through a magnifying glass and it ignites fire. In the same way, diffuse attention leaves your energy unfocused, but concentrated attention directed inward becomes a force that reshapes reality. Think of how the brain works under survival conditions. When you are stressed, your attention narrows on the threat. It is designed to keep you alive in emergencies, but when you live chronically in this mode, your attention becomes trapped by the very things you fear. You scan the environment for danger, your thoughts loop around worst-case scenarios, and your energy is consumed in anticipating problems. Nothing new can enter because all of your attention is invested in the familiar. But when you shift out of this state and choose deliberately to focus on gratitude, possibility, or the feeling of already being the person you want to become, the brain begins to reorganize itself. New networks of neurons fire together, creating new connections which become the blueprint for a different experience. Attention also acts as a tuning fork. Whatever frequency you hold within draws matching frequencies in the external world. If your attention is consumed by lack, you tune yourself to experiences of lack. If your attention is consumed by love, joy, and wholeness, you tune yourself to experiences that mirror those states. It is not about positive thinking for the sake of optimism. It is about shifting the vibrational state of your being by deciding where your energy will flow. Your outer world cannot help but respond to the inner broadcast you are transmitting. The moment you catch yourself spiraling into worry or judgment, and you consciously choose to place your attention elsewhere, you reclaim power. You take the energy that was about to be lost in a repetitive cycle, and you reinvest it into creation. Over time, this act of choosing where your attention goes becomes a habit. You stop being a victim to external triggers, and you begin to master your internal environment. Imagine the difference this creates. One version of you spends the day scattered, drained, and reactive, while another version spends the day centered, creative, and empowered simply because of where attention is directed. This principle is visible even in your physical body. When you direct your attention to an area, blood flow increases there, healing accelerates, and the nervous system rebalances. Athletes use this when they visualize muscles firing before a performance, and the body responds as if the exercise is real. Patients in healing studies have shown measurable physiological changes simply by focusing on wholeness and health rather than disease. These are not placebo effects in the superficial sense. They are demonstrations of how energy organizes itself according to attention. Directing energy inward does not mean ignoring the external world. It means no longer being controlled by it. When you invest most of your attention in your inner vision, you begin living from cause rather than effect. External circumstances lose their power to dictate how you feel. Instead, your inner state sets the tone, and reality conforms to match it. Opportunities that once seemed distant suddenly appear, not because they weren't available before, but because your frequency was too scattered to perceive them. By consolidating your energy, you open the doorway to synchronicity. Energy is always moving, always responding. The question is whether you are directing it consciously or scattering it unconsciously. Every moment is a choice. Where is your attention right now? Is it on what is missing, or is it on what you are becoming? Is it on the noise of the outer world, or the silence of your inner coherence? Wherever it rests, that is where the current of your life will flow. There is a profound shift that happens when you move from being consumed by your thoughts to simply observing them. Most people live in a constant stream of mental chatter without ever realizing that they are not their thoughts. They identify with every narrative, every story, every memory, and every projection as if these voices in the mind define who they are. But self-observation begins the process of breaking that identification. When you take a step back and become the witness, you discover a space between who you are and what you are thinking. That space is the gateway to transformation because it is the place where choice begins. When you observe your thoughts, you notice patterns you may have been blind to. Perhaps you realize that every time you feel uncertain, your mind rushes to the worst-case scenario. Perhaps you notice that the same story of limitation plays in your head whenever an opportunity arises. I'm not ready, I'm not capable, I'm not enough. Without observation, these thoughts run on autopilot, repeating themselves like grooves in a record. But when you begin to watch them with awareness, You disrupt the unconscious cycle. The act of observation itself starts to loosen the grip those thoughts have on your identity. Neuroscience shows that the brain wires itself according to repetition. Every time you think a thought, you strengthen the connections between the neurons involved in that pattern. Over years of repetition, those connections become so automatic that the thought feels like truth, when in fact it is simply conditioning. Self-observation is the first step in breaking this wiring. When you witness the thought rather than unconsciously engaging with it, you stop firing those neurons together in the same way. This weakens the old pattern and opens the possibility for new connections to form. You are literally rewiring the brain by choosing awareness over reaction. Self-observation is not about judging yourself or fighting against your thoughts. In fact, the more you resist or criticize what arises in the mind, the more energy you give it. True observation is neutral. It is like sitting by a river and watching leaves float by. Some leaves are beautiful, some are heavy and dark, but they all drift past when you don't reach out to grab them. In the same way, thoughts lose their power when you simply let them pass without becoming entangled. This neutrality is where freedom begins, because you are no longer controlled by the old scripts that once ran your life. There is also a powerful shift in emotion when you practice self-observation. Normally, emotions take over the body without your consent. A thought triggers a feeling, the body reacts with chemicals, and before you know it, you are living inside the emotion as if it were the totality of reality. But with observation, you create a pause. You feel the emotion rise, and instead of drowning in it, you acknowledge it as an experience passing through you. That pause is everything. It allows you to respond with awareness rather than react from conditioning. Over time, the body learns not to be hijacked by the same old emotions, and a new baseline of inner calm begins to emerge. Observation also dissolves the illusion of time. Most of your mental activity is either reliving the past or anticipating the future. You replay conversations, regret choices, rehearse fears, and project outcomes. Very little of this chatter is about the present moment, but when you observe your thoughts, you naturally return to the now. You realize that the past is only alive when you think about it, and the future is only real in your imagination. The present moment, on the other hand, is always available, always alive, always spacious. Self-observation anchors you here, and in that anchoring, you find freedom from the mental noise that steals your energy. There is a deeper mystery, too. When you practice self-observation consistently, you begin to sense that the observer itself never changes. Thoughts come and go, emotions rise and fall, but the awareness watching them remains constant. This realization can be life-changing because it shows you that your true identity is not the content of the mind, but the consciousness behind it. That consciousness is steady, unshakable, and vast. Once you touch it, even for a moment, you realize that nothing external has the power to truly define you. You are not your fears, not your doubts, not your stories. You are the awareness in which they appear. Through this practice, you also begin to notice synchronicities more clearly. When you are no longer entangled in the noise of the mind, you become more receptive to subtle cues from the environment. You notice patterns in conversations, symbols in your daily life, opportunities that align perfectly with your inner vision. These are not accidents. They are the outer reflection of the coherence you are cultivating within. By observing yourself, you become more attuned to the language of the universe, which speaks not through words but through patterns of energy and timing. The power of self-observation lies in its simplicity. It does not require you to escape the world, renounce your responsibilities, or suppress your thoughts. It only asks you to notice. Notice what arises, notice how it feels, notice how long it stays, and notice that you remain unchanged as the witness. In that noticing, transformation unfolds naturally. Old patterns lose their hold, new possibilities emerge, and a deeper intelligence begins to guide your life. Self-observation is the art of becoming aware of the inner landscape so you can step out of unconscious repetition and into conscious creation. Most people live their lives reacting to the world around them. They wake up in the morning, check their phones, and immediately let external circumstances dictate their emotional state. A message, a headline, a memory, or even the weather sets the tone for their day. This is the experience of being the effect, where your inner state is determined by what is happening outside of you. Living this way feels normal because it is how we have been conditioned since childhood. Yet when you examine it more closely, you realize that it leaves you powerless. If the world has to change before you can feel better, then you are perpetually waiting, perpetually dependent, perpetually out of control. To become the cause rather than the effect means flipping this paradigm entirely. It is choosing to generate your inner state first, before anything in the outer world has changed. It is deciding that your emotional stability, your peace, your joy, and your vision are not contingent on circumstances. Instead, they are cultivated within you, by you, and for you. When you operate this way, you are no longer at the mercy of external conditions. You set the tone, and the external world adjusts to match. This shift is both neurological and energetic. Neurologically, your brain is used to firing patterns that link certain external triggers to specific emotions. For example, someone criticizes you and your brain automatically fires into defensiveness or shame. A problem arises at work, and your body immediately produces stress hormones as if you were under threat. This is conditioning. But when you begin to practice becoming the cause, you notice the trigger, you observe the old pattern rising, and you choose a different response. With repetition, you rewire your brain so that external circumstances no longer control you. You build the neural architecture of freedom. Energetically, becoming the cause means broadcasting coherence rather than absorbing chaos. If you walk into a room filled with tension and you absorb that energy unconsciously, you become the effect. But if you walk in grounded, centered, and aligned, your energy influences the room rather than the other way around. People feel the presence of someone who is rooted in themselves. They sense stability, calm, and clarity. This is not because of anything you say or do outwardly, but because of the vibration you carry inwardly. You are the cause of the energy in the space rather than the effect of it. One of the most profound realizations in this process is that life does not respond to what you want. It responds to what you are being. You may want success, love, or abundance, but if your inner state is constantly broadcasting fear, doubt, and lack, then you remain the effect of your old conditioning. Becoming the cause requires you to embody the state of being that matches your vision now, before any evidence shows up. If you want love, you cultivate love within yourself. If you want abundance, you practice the feeling of already being abundant. If you want freedom, you generate that sense of expansion in your own body and mind. By doing so, you are no longer waiting for the outer world to change. You are causing the change from within. This practice also requires taking responsibility. When you are the effect, it is easy to blame the world, other people, or circumstances for how you feel. Responsibility, however, is the act of reclaiming power. It is saying, I am responsible for my inner state, no matter what is happening outside of me. This does not mean denying challenges or pretending difficulties do not exist. It means you no longer give them authority over your being. You decide who you will be in the face of them, and that decision alone begins to reorganize the external conditions. Think about how cause and effect operate in nature. When you plant a seed, the soil, sunlight, and water respond to it. The cause is the seed, the effect is the growth. The external world cannot help but respond to what has been planted. In the same way, when you plant coherent emotions and elevated thoughts within yourself, the field around you begins to reorganize. Opportunities, people, and experiences come into alignment not because you forced them, but because you shifted what you were broadcasting. You became the seed of change, and the effect unfolded naturally. Many people live in the illusion that they must wait for the world to change before they can change how they feel. They say, when I get the promotion, I will feel successful. When I meet the right partner, I will feel loved. When I have more money, I will feel secure. But this is the trap of being the effect. The outer condition rarely changes until the inner state does, and even when it does, the satisfaction is temporary because the inner conditioning has not been transformed. Becoming the cause means reversing the order. I choose to feel successful now. I choose to embody love now. I choose to live in security now. From that state of being, you are broadcasting coherence, and the external world mirrors it back. What is extraordinary is how quickly life can reorganize itself once you practice this. You begin to notice synchronicities, unexpected opportunities, and effortless connections. This is not magic in the sense of fantasy. It is alignment. The universe is responding to the signal you are transmitting, and that signal is no longer the scattered chaos of old conditioning, but the clarity of conscious creation. The more consistently you remain the cause, the more your external life falls into harmony. This does not mean that challenges disappear, but your relationship to them changes completely. When difficulties arise, you no longer collapse into being the effect. Instead, you see them as invitations to remain aligned, to hold your state, and to project coherence even in the midst of chaos. In this way, challenges become opportunities to strengthen your ability to be the cause. Each moment of staying rooted within yourself builds resilience, trust, and mastery. Over time, the old identity of being a victim of life dissolves, and a new identity emerges. The creator, the initiator, the source of your own reality. When the mind, heart, and body are out of alignment, life feels like a struggle. You may chase goals, force outcomes, and try to control circumstances, but nothing flows with ease. This dissonance shows up as stress in the body, confusion in the mind, and dissatisfaction in the heart. Yet when these three aspects of your being begin to work together in coherence, something remarkable occurs. The external world starts to mirror back that inner balance. Harmony is magnetized not by chance or luck, but by the frequency you cultivate within yourself through inner work. Inner work is not about fixing what is broken. It is about bringing into harmony what has been fragmented. The heart has its desires, the mind has its logic, and the body has its habits. Most of the time, they are moving in different directions. You may think one thing, feel another, and act in a completely contradictory way. For example, you may think, I want to be successful, but feel unworthy inside, while your body continues to act out patterns of procrastination or fear. This lack of alignment sends out a scattered signal into the field of life, and the results reflect that fragmentation. But when your thoughts, emotions, and actions begin to align with the same vision, you broadcast a clear, coherent frequency. That frequency magnetizes experiences, people, and opportunities that match it, just as a tuning fork draws resonance from another. The heart is the center of this harmony. It generates the strongest electromagnetic field in the body, measurable several feet beyond your physical form. When you cultivate emotions such as gratitude, compassion, and joy, the heart sends coherent signals that influence the brain and nervous system. This coherence radiates outward and interacts with the environment around you. People feel it even if they cannot explain it. Situations begin to flow more smoothly because your inner state is no longer broadcasting conflict. The heart becomes the magnet, and the mind and body follow its rhythm. The mind's role in this process is to provide clarity of vision. Without a clear picture of what you are aligning with, the energy of the heart has no direction. The mind creates the image, the possibility, the blueprint of the future you are choosing to live into. When the mind holds this vision, not as a distant dream, but as a present reality in the making, it provides the structure for the heart's energy to fill. In this way, thought and emotion become partners. The mind imagines the destination, and the heart provides the fuel to reach it. The body, in turn, becomes the vessel that anchors this harmony in physical reality. Without the body, alignment remains theoretical. The body must embody the vision through new habits, actions, and behaviors. This is where inner work becomes tangible. When the body acts in ways that match the vision of the mind and the emotions of the heart, it reinforces the alignment. Each action taken in coherence strengthens the magnetism, making harmony not just a fleeting feeling, but a lived reality. This inner work requires consistency. Just as a musician tunes their instrument daily to keep it in harmony, you must regularly bring your mind, heart, and body into alignment. Meditation, visualization, breathwork, and reflection are tools for this tuning process. When you notice your mind wandering into fear or doubt, you bring it back to the vision. When you feel the heart closing with resentment or anger, you open it again with gratitude or forgiveness. When the body falls into old patterns, you gently redirect it with conscious action. Every time you practice this, you are refining your inner frequency, and the outer world cannot help but respond. What makes this so powerful is that harmony attracts without force. You do not have to manipulate or control circumstances. You do not need to chase opportunities or convince others to see your value. The coherence within you becomes magnetic. It draws to you the people, resources, and synchronicities that resonate with your frequency. This is why so many people speak of things falling into place once they commit to inner work. What is really happening is that the field around them is reorganizing to reflect the coherence they are radiating. This principle is visible in relationships. When you are out of alignment, you may attract partners or friends who mirror your inner conflicts, leading to drama, misunderstandings, or pain. But when you cultivate harmony within, you begin to attract relationships that support, nurture, and inspire you. The same applies to work, health, and every other area of life. Harmony within magnetizes harmony without. What you experience externally is never separate from the frequency you cultivate internally. There is also a sense of effortlessness that emerges when you live this way. Life feels less like climbing uphill and more like being carried by a current. This does not mean you avoid challenges. Rather, it means challenges are met with clarity and flow instead of resistance and chaos. You recognize them as part of the unfolding process, opportunities to deepen alignment rather than threats to your well-being. With this perspective, even obstacles become part of the harmony you are magnetizing, guiding you toward greater balance and coherence. At its deepest level, magnetizing harmony through inner work is about trust. It is trusting that the intelligence within you and around you knows how to organize reality better than your mind's constant attempts at control. It is trusting that by aligning your inner world, the outer world will adjust in ways you could not have predicted or forced. It is trusting that the universe responds not to your effort alone, but to the state of being you embody. This trust allows you to let go of struggle, to surrender the need to control outcomes, and to rest in the flow of coherence. When you focus on yourself and stay silent, you step into a dimension of power that most people overlook. Silence becomes the language of alignment, teaching your mind, body, and heart to synchronize with clarity and coherence. Attention, once scattered across endless distractions, is reclaimed and directed inward, becoming the fuel that shapes your reality. Through self-observation, you detach from the old patterns that once defined you, opening the door to new neural pathways and emotional freedom. By becoming the cause rather than the effect, you stop waiting for the world to change and instead generate the state of being that calls new experiences into existence. And as you align your mind, heart, and body through inner work, you become magnetic, attracting harmony without effort, allowing circumstances to naturally fall into place. This journey is not about withdrawing from life, but about engaging with it from a deeper level of coherence. When your inner state becomes greater than any outer condition, you unlock the ability to live as a creator rather than a reactor. You begin to see that transformation does not happen by forcing the external world to bend to your will, but by cultivating an inner frequency that the world cannot help but reflect. In this way, silence, focus, and alignment are not small practices, but gateways to an entirely new way of being, where life unfolds with grace, synchronicity, and effortless flow.